All right, we begin this hour in Texas, where in the next hour, local government officials will release new details about the deadly floods in the state's so-called hill country. You see time-lapse video next to me. Several campsites are in this area. An extensive storm flooding killed more than 80 people, with dozens more still missing right now. Also, additional rainfall is expected today. Just this morning, Camp Mystic, that's a girls' sleepaway camp, confirmed it was mourning 27 children and counselors who were lost in the tragedy. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said they will not stop searching until they find everyone unaccounted for.
It was nothing short of horrific to see what those young children went through, and we will remain 100% dedicated, searching for every single one of the children who were at Camp Mystic, as well as anybody else in the entire riverbed, to make sure that they're going to be recovered.
CBS News correspondent Jason Allen has been reporting from Kerrville since Friday. Jason, I remember throwing to you as soon as you had arrived on the scene and we got word that so many people were missing. And I know that you got to visit Camp Mystic, or at least the devastation that has been left behind. What have you seen?
Yeah, we did, Errol. We did speak right away on Friday, and we were able to make it down the road to Camp Mystic. And you could see and understand in that moment why it was so difficult to escape. There's a large building on the property. It's the size of a huge barn, and the entire front was blown out. You could see that the doors were not on cabins and windows were not intact. Everything from the grounds was gone. There were workers that day. They were clearing away debris from the entrance, but this was just covered in mud and tree branches. And this is a camp that just sits right up on the banks of the Guadalupe River. This would have been a very difficult spot for them to find any sort of higher ground to run to.
And while this is one campsite receiving a lot of attention, it's not the only one. You also have plenty of people living along the multiple rivers there. So I'm wondering if this was completely unexpected, or if folks in this part of Texas have dealt with this type of thing before.
That's a fantastic point on two fronts there, Errol, that there are a number of campsites up and down this river. It's dotted with children's camps, but also campgrounds just for people where they would come here to spend the 4th of July holiday. We're in one of those right now. There's some campsites that we can see, and there would be RVs and cabins and tent camping grounds all the way up and down the river. Now, it's beautiful. You can see the river back behind me this morning, and that's why people come here. But there is a long history here of flash floods. Just the way that this area is, the moisture comes up from the Gulf, it hits these hills, and you can get copious amounts of rain that can fall at one time. Even today, there is the potential for some heavy rain showers that might fall, maybe 1 to 2 inches, but maybe in some places as much as 10 inches. And so there's a long history of flash floods here. People know that they can be deadly and dangerous. But as I talked to one young woman yesterday, she said maybe we kind of became complacent as to just how dangerous in a moment this river could become.
And on the warning front, Jason, there's been back and forth on if there was enough warning ahead of time. What are officials saying about efforts to let people know danger was on the way?
Yeah, there have been a lot of questions now about that, because this is something, Errol, that officials here have talked about for several years. They have talked about the possibility of warning sirens. Could grants pay for it? Warning sirens are common throughout Texas, typically used for tornadoes, but also for extreme weather events. That is not something they have here. We know that Senator Ted Cruz just talked to CBS News Texas about this issue a little bit earlier. Let's listen to that.
There will naturally be a process of looking back and assessing, okay, how could this disaster have been averted? And I will say, as a dad, it is frustrating that those girls were not out of harm's way earlier. And I'm sure we will ask questions about how, when the next flood occurs, how do we make sure that you don't have 7- and 8-year-old little girls in cabins right by the river's edge as the floodwaters are rising?
Governor Greg Abbott also talked about that yesterday. There's been a lot of questions. Why weren't there warnings about this? And a lot of times the answers, Errol, have been, well, the National Weather Service did put out warnings, and they'll say, but did people listen to them? Well, the governor said yesterday this is something that they want to take a look at potentially in a special session of the legislature that is coming up here later this month.
Yeah, and it really got bad in the overnight hours when most people were asleep. So really important questions as to how soon things went out. Jason Allen, thank you so much, and we expect a press update at the top of this hour. CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo has more for us on this. Good morning to you, Kate. So from your perspective, why was this storm just so devastating?
We had just a combination of factors, Errol, in that area that led to just basically a freak incident. As Jason mentioned, this area is not a stranger to flash flooding because of the geography of the Texas Hill Country. But you had several things going on. Let's talk about a couple of them. First and foremost, you had Barry, tropical system that was weakening, but all of that moisture was lifted northward along the higher terrain here of eastern Mexico, right on up into Texas. You had a low-level jet stream, which was providing added moisture. And you also had a nearly stationary upper low, which was drawing all that moisture, firing storms, and nothing was really moving. So you just had all of this rain coming down over the same areas and heavy, heavy rainfall rates because of all of that deep, deep moisture in the atmosphere. So again, when you factor in that upper level disturbance, the low level jet, plus the tropical system, those are three things factoring in. And of course, you have the geography of the hill country leading to that funnel effect where all of that rainwater just runs down the slopes and into those rivers, causing that river to rise again about 26 feet in 45 minutes. Streeter, Texas, picking up over 20 inches of rain. And the problem, we've got another round of rain today. Heavy downpours could lead to 1 to 3 inches of rain and a moderate risk for flooding in the Texas Hill Country yet again today. We'll be monitoring that for you. Errol, back over to you.
And we'll check back in with you later this hour for more on the national forecast. Thank you, Kate.